You're just an old piece of trash. Sour milk is all you deserve." My son spat those words at me like poison. They hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken. I sat at the kitchen table while he, standing proudly with his girlfriend at his side, poured fresh cold milk from a brand new bottle into 2 tall glasses. They clinked them together like it was champagne at some victory party. In front of me sat a cloudy glass of expired milk. The yellow cap was sticky. The expiration date screamed last week. The smell rolled out of the bottle like rot from a dumpster, acidic, sour, almost burning my nose. I looked at my son, my own son, the same boy I once carried on my shoulders, the boy I used to feed oatmeal at 6 a.m. before rushing to work, the boy I stayed up with when he had fevers. He turned his face away, pretending I wasn't even there. "Drink it," he sneered. "What are you waiting for? Your body's already in the trash heap anyway." His girlfriend giggled, covering her mouth with her manicured hand. "Come on, let the old man finish it. No reason to waste good food on him." My hand trembled as I lifted the glass. It felt heavier than it should have, like I wasn't holding milk, but the weight of my entire life. I brought it to my lips. The stench filled my throat before the liquid even touched my tongue. I swallowed. My chest tightened. My stomach twisted into knots. They laughed. I stared into my son's eyes, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel love, or pity, or even disappointment. I felt pure hatred. And if you think that's where this story ends, you're dead wrong. That night, I collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. But fate has a cruel sense of humor, because that very same sour milk led me to something no one expected. It led me to $24 million. And when my son came crawling for his share, hungry for money he thought was already his, I looked him straight in the eye and said, "You buried me with sour milk. I buried you with generosity." Subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is right now, because this sour milk became the start of the sweetest revenge I've ever tasted. The morning started like any other. The old coffee maker on the counter hissed and gurgled, filling the kitchen with the bitter smell of roasted beans. I always loved that sound. It reminded me of Caroline. She used to switch it on before dawn, long before sunlight slipped through the blinds. Now I did it myself, as if to prove that order still existed in my life. Outside, the garbage truck rumbled down the street. Dogs barked in the distance, and the neighbors' sprinklers ticked in their front yards. The little radio on the windowsill mumbled the local news. Yesterday, a lucky man in the next county won $10 million in the state lottery. Can you imagine? I smirked. Stories like that felt like fairy tales, never meant for people like me. The fridge door squeaked as I pulled out a carton of milk and set it on the table. My son walked in just then, yawning, phone in hand. He gave me a quick glance, then laughed. "Dad, you still listen to that old radio? Seriously? Ever heard of Spotify?" It sounded casual, almost like a joke, but it stung. For him, everything old was useless. Music, radios, and maybe me too. I didn't answer. I poured the milk into my cup of coffee, stirred it slowly, and watched the swirl of cream spread like a storm cloud. Inside, a quiet thought pressed against my ribs. He doesn't even notice I'm here. That evening, the kitchen smelled of reheated leftovers. I was sitting at the table with my newspaper, glasses sliding down my nose, when my son stormed in holding a crumpled bill. "Dad, what's this? You paid the power company again?" I looked up. Yes, the bill was due. He waved the paper in the air like a flag. "You don't get it. You can't just go paying things the old-fashioned way. I had a plan. Online transfers, auto pay, budget tracking. Now everything's messed up." I sighed, folding the paper on my lap. I covered the electricity so the lights don't go out. That's what matters. He scoffed, pacing across the linoleum floor. "Yeah, but you don't even ask. You think throwing money at things solves it. Well, it doesn't. This is why nothing in this house works the way it should." I stayed quiet. The refrigerator hummed behind me. The radio whispered a country song from the living room. His voice was louder than everything. Finally, I said, "I've been paying bills my whole life. That's how you had heat in the winter and AC in the summer. Maybe it's not perfect, but it worked." He rolled his eyes. "Worked for you, not for us." And just like that, something small, just a bill, turned into another cut across my skin. The diner smelled of burnt bacon and strong coffee. The neon sign outside buzzed through the window, flashing red light across our table. My son sat with his girlfriend, laughing too loud, while I stirred the sugar into my cup. The spoon clinked against the ceramic like a nervous heartbeat. "Dad, you ever been anywhere nicer than this?" he asked suddenly, raising his voice so the booth behind us could hear. I looked at him. "It's a good place. I've been coming here for years." He smirked, leaning back. "Exactly my point. Years. You've been stuck in the same spot forever." His girlfriend giggled, tapping her nails against her glass of soda. "Maybe he likes old things, old coffee, old music." She glanced at me. Old habits." The waitress passed by, the scent of fried onions trailing after her. I felt the heat of eyes from the next booth, two teenagers whispering and snickering. "Don't start," I said quietly. My hand tightened around the warm mug. "I'm just saying," he shrugged, biting into a fry. "You don't move forward, Dad. You're basically background." The ceiling fan hummed above us, stirring the greasy air. My stomach knotted. I pushed the cup away. "If I'm background, then why bring me here?" He looked straight at me, eyes glinting under the neon glow. "Because even the background should know its place." The laughter from the other booth swelled, and for a moment it felt like the whole diner was in on the joke. I gripped the edge of the table, the Formica sticky under my palm, and thought, the next time he tries this, he won't see me stay silent. The kitchen smelled of garlic and overcooked pasta. Steam fogged the window above the sink, dripping down in slow lines. I sat at the table, flipping through a newspaper, while my son opened the fridge and pulled out a carton of orange juice. "Dad," he said, voice casual but sharp underneath, "you ever thought about what happens, when you're gone?" I folded the paper, my fingers leaving faint ink smudges on the page. "Gone where?" He smirked, pouring juice into 2 glasses, one for himself, one for his girlfriend. "I mean, when you're really gone. Who gets the house? The car? I'm just saying, it would be easier for everyone if you made it official." The fridge motor hummed, a low vibration through the tile floor. His girlfriend leaned against the counter, biting at her straw. "It's smart," she chimed in. "Most people your age already have that figured out." I stared at the half-empty juice carton, condensation sliding down its side. "That's not a conversation for dinner." He shrugged, taking a long sip. "Better now than when it's too late. You don't want things messy, do you?" The overhead light buzzed, flickering for a second before steadying again. My chest felt tight, like the air had gone stale. "Maybe I'll let the lawyer decide," I muttered. He set his glass down with a loud thud, juice sloshing over the rim. "Or maybe you just finally admit the house is basically mine already." I clenched the newspaper, the pages crumpling in my hands. For the first time, I wondered if he saw me as anything more than a key he was waiting to snatch. And the way he smiled told me he was already reaching for it. The house smelled of tomato sauce and fresh basil. My son was cooking dinner with his girlfriend, laughter spilling from the kitchen as music played low from his phone speaker. I hovered in the doorway, the wooden floor cool beneath my socks, watching them move around each other like I wasn't there. "Did you get the good plates?" she asked, her voice light, teasing. "Of course," he said, pulling down the porcelain set I had once saved for holidays. He set 2 places at the table, arranging them carefully under the warm glow of the overhead lamp. I stepped forward, clearing my throat. "Need a hand?" They both froze for a second, then exchanged a glance. My son grabbed another plate, smaller, chipped on the edge. He slid it to the far corner of the table. "There you go, Dad. Don't worry about the rest. We've got it covered." The smell of garlic bread filled the air, rich and warm, but the chair he pushed out for me was half turned away from the light. My fork clinked against the worn wood as I sat down. They poured themselves fresh milk from the new carton, the glass sweating on the table. For me, a half-empty jug of the older one appeared beside my plate. "Thought you didn't mind the leftovers," my son said, grinning as he filled his own glass to the brim. The music played on, the sauce bubbled, and their laughter overlapped. I sat there, my plate in the shadows, and realized I wasn't part of the dinner. I was the extra chair they'd tried not to notice. And in that silence, I knew the next blow was already waiting. The kitchen light buzzed overhead, pale and cold against the linoleum. My son stood by the counter with his girlfriend, both of them pouring fresh milk into tall glasses. The sound of liquid hitting glass was sharp, almost mocking. He slid a different glass toward me, filled from the old yellow-capped carton. The sour smell drifted up immediately. "Drink it," he said flatly. "You're old. You won't notice the difference." His girlfriend giggled, her bracelets clinking as she raised her glass. "It's not like he needs the good stuff." I looked at the glass in front of me, my throat tightened. The hum of the refrigerator grew louder, like it was pressing me into silence. "I don't need this," I muttered. "Yes, you do," my son snapped, his voice cutting across the room. "Stop wasting money. We're not made of gold." The laughter behind him, hers, high-pitched and sharp, felt like nails against glass. My hands shook as I lifted the drink. The sour taste hit instantly, burning my tongue, clawing at my stomach. Their laughter rose again. My son raised his fresh glass high, clinking it against hers. "To the future," he said, loud enough for me to hear every word. By the time the cramps hit, I was already in my room, curled against the mattress. My phone slipped from my hand onto the hardwood. The screen glowed faintly in the dark as I texted him. "I don't feel right. Call someone." Minutes passed. The reply came, "Figure it out yourself. We're busy." The next thing I remember was the blinding hospital light. The smell of antiseptic filled my nose, sharp and cold. A nurse leaned over me, murmuring something to a doctor. At the end of the bed, I saw them, my son and his girlfriend, standing with their arms crossed, talking in low voices. She was smirking. He looked everywhere but at me. When the doctor asked who would stay with me overnight, my son's voice was clear. "Not us. He'll be fine alone." The words landed harder than the pain in my stomach. My body lay in that bed, but something deeper, something I thought unbreakable, snapped inside me. I closed my eyes. For the first time, I felt like a stranger in my own blood. The hospital room smelled of bleach and overcooked vegetables drifting from the cafeteria down the hall. Machines beeped steadily at my side, each tone reminding me I was still alive, though barely. The door creaked, and my son walked in with his girlfriend. She carried a plastic cup of iced coffee, straw clicking against the lid. Their laughter leaked into the room before the door shut. "Dad," he said, his voice carrying that fake brightness he used with strangers. "You really gotta stop being so dramatic. One glass of milk and you end up here." Her giggle sliced through the sterile air. Maybe his system is just too old, can't handle real life anymore. I shifted on the bed. The paper sheet crinkled beneath me, rough against my skin. "I asked you to call for help." "You didn't." He shrugged, pulling out his phone. The blue glow lit his face, indifferent. "We were busy. You've handled worse. Stop acting like we abandoned you." A nurse entered with a clipboard. She looked at me, then at them, brows knitting. "Will you be staying with your father tonight?" My son laughed, waving a hand as if the idea was absurd. "He doesn't need babysitting. He's fine." The nurse hesitated, eyes flicking back to me. His girlfriend leaned closer to him, whispering loud enough for me to hear. "He'll just slow us down. Let's go. I'm starving." The smell of her coffee lingered after they turned for the door. The nurse's gaze met mine, pity heavy in her eyes. I tried to speak, but the words stuck in my throat. My hands clenched against the sheet, nails tearing at the thin paper. And in that silence, their laughter trailed down the hallway, louder than the machines, louder than the pounding in my chest. For everyone watching, it was clear. I wasn't family. I was a burden left behind. The room grew quiet after they left. The fluorescent light hummed above me, cold and relentless. My tray of untouched food, gray mashed potatoes, peas sliding in their watery juice, sat on the side table, the smell turning my stomach. I turned my head toward the window. Outside, rain streaked down the glass, city lights bleeding into long, crooked lines. Each drop hit the sill with a hollow tap, steady as a clock ticking down. The hallway beyond my door echoed with voices, families visiting, children laughing, someone wheeling a cart, all of it muffled, distant. My room stayed still, filled only with the faint beeping of the monitor and the rasp of my own breath. I picked up my phone from the table. No new messages, just the last one I'd sent. "I need help." The reply glared back at me, glowing in the dark. "Figure it out yourself." I let the phone fall to my chest, the weight of it pressed down like a stone. My hand trembled, not from pain, but from something deeper, a hollowness spreading through me. The nurse came once more to check the IV. Her eyes lingered on me with a softness I hadn't seen in years. "Do you need anything?" she asked. I shook my head, my voice cracked. "No one's coming." She pressed her lips together, nodded, and left. The door closed with a soft click. Alone again, I listened to the rain, the hum, the emptiness. And in that silence, one thought grew heavier, sharper, until it filled the whole room. I had died for them already. All that was left was the funeral they hadn't bothered to plan. The house felt heavier than usual when I came back from the hospital. The hallway smelled faintly of dust and old carpet, the kind of smell you only notice when everything else is gone. I dropped my bag by the door. It fell with a dull thud that echoed through the quiet rooms. I sat at the kitchen table, the surface cool under my hands. The clock on the wall ticked, steady and merciless. Each second reminded me how long the silence had stretched. I picked up my phone and scrolled to my son's name. The line rang 3 times before his voice message cut in. "Leave it, I'll call later." The beep sounded like a door slamming. I tried again an hour later, straight to voicemail. Then I called an old neighbor, Mrs. Turner. She answered on the second ring, but her voice was rushed. "Sorry, dear, I'm just heading out. Maybe tomorrow, okay?" Before I could reply, the line went dead. I dialed one more number, my brother's. The static hummed before the tone clicked. His wife answered. "He's busy. Call back another time." No warmth, no pause, just the hollow click of disconnection. The refrigerator hummed behind me, louder than ever. I opened it, hoping for distraction, but it was nearly empty. A half bottle of expired milk sat on the shelf, the smell hitting me before I even touched it. I shut the door quickly. The clock ticked on. The phone stayed silent, and in that silence, I realized something I had tried to deny. There was no one left who would answer when I called. The next morning, sunlight leaked through the blinds in thin, dusty stripes. The air in the house smelled stale, like damp laundry left too long in the machine. I made coffee, the old percolator rattling on the counter, but the taste was bitter and thin. I heard voices in the living room. My son had come in late with his girlfriend. Their laughter carried down the hall, sharp in the quiet house. I walked in, holding my mug, trying to feel like I belonged. He glanced up, smirk tugging at his mouth. "You're awake? Don't you have, bingo or something?" She laughed, leaning against him. "Or maybe a nap. Isn't that what old men do?" Heat crept up my neck. I set the mug down on the table, the ceramic clink echoing too loud in the room. "I just wanted to see if you needed breakfast." He waved me off, eyes back on his phone. "We're fine. Honestly, Dad, you hanging around like this, it's kind of depressing." Her perfume filled the room, sweet and cloying, almost choking against the smell of my cold coffee. She whispered, not low enough for me to miss it. "He's always just there." My chest tightened. I felt myself shrink into the wallpaper, like I was fading out of my own house. I picked up the mug again, hands shaking, and slipped back to the kitchen. The floorboards groaned under my steps, every creak reminding me how out of place I'd become. Back at the table, I stared at the clock. The second hand ticked, each beat pulling me deeper into the truth. This wasn't my home anymore. This wasn't my family anymore. I had reached the bottom, and they were the ones who had shoved me there. The house still smelled faintly of antiseptic from the hospital wristband I tore off at the door. I hung my jacket on the back of a chair and heard something papery slide down the sleeve. A small white envelope hit the floor, grease-stained, the kind you get at 7-Eleven. My name wasn't on it, just a blue ballpoint scribble, Son QP. I bent to pick it up. The kitchen light hummed, cold against the laminate. Inside the envelope lay a single lottery ticket, the paper thin and waxy under my fingertips. The numbers staggered across in 2 lines, the black ink slightly smudged where my thumb had pressed it weeks ago. I could smell coffee that wasn't there, just the ghost of mornings I used to have. The radio on the windowsill crackled as I tuned the dial. A woman's voice cut through the static. Breaking local, one winning Mega Lotto ticket worth $24 million was sold at the 7-Eleven on Pine and Maple. My hand tightened around the ticket. Pine and Maple. The same flickering neon by the ice freezer, the same sticky counter where I bought ginger ale on Sundays. "Dad?" My son's voice came from the hallway, closer than I'd realized. "You home already?" I slid the ticket back into the envelope and palmed it. "Yeah." He walked in with his girlfriend, the scent of her perfume drifting ahead of them, sweet and powdery. He wrinkled his nose. "You smell like bleach." "Hospital," I said. She grinned, tapping her nails against the doorway. "You okay, or gonna be dramatic again?" "Fine," I lied, slipping the envelope into the pocket of my robe. "You two need anything from the store?" "Nah," he said, already scrolling his phone. "We ordered in. Don't touch the garlic knots." "I won't," I said, though the smell of takeout tomato sauce lingered under the fluorescent light, warm and heavy, making my stomach twitch. I filled a glass at the sink. The water ran metallic, cold enough to bite the tooth I chipped years ago. When I turned around, they were gone. I took the ticket to my bedroom and closed the door. The springs in the mattress squealed when I sat, the sound small and guilty. I pulled the curtains together, shutting out the orange wash from the street lamp. My phone screen lit the room blue. I opened the state lottery site, the little wheel spinning, spinning, as if it could hear my heart. "Dad!" he shouted from the hall. "Wi-Fi's lagging." "Give it a minute," I called back, thumb hovering over refresh. The page blinked into focus. Winning numbers glowed across the top like runway lights. I whispered them, one by one, a countdown to anywhere but here. I laid my ticket on the nightstand, the paper curling at the edge. "First number," I said under my breath, checking the row. "Match." A small click in my chest, like a door cracking open. "Second number, match." My mouth went dry. I swallowed air. "Third number," my eyes blurred, and I rubbed them with the heel of my hand, the salt sting of tiredness making the digits swim. "Match." A shadow moved under the door. The knob turned. I snatched the ticket and slid it under the mattress, the paper whispering against the fabric. The door cracked open. His girlfriend leaned in, grin bright in the dim. "We're taking the big TV. You don't mind, right?" "Take it," I said. "Thanks," she chirped, and the door clicked shut again. I pulled the ticket back out, edges now warmed by the mattress heat. Fourth number. My chest pounded so hard I could hear it over the AC vent. Match. "Dad!" he shouted again. "Wi-Fi!" I stood, tucked the envelope inside an old hardcover on my shelf, Caroline's book, the spine soft from years in our hands, and walked down the hall, trying to breathe like nothing was wrong. He and the girl were on the couch, the TV a bright wash of color over their faces. Boxes of garlic knots steamed on the coffee table, butter pooling, the smell thick and heavy. He didn't look up. "Router needs a reset." "I'll do it," I said, crouching beside the dusty black box. The carpet felt gritty under my knees. I pulled the plug, counted to 10, and pushed it back in. The lights blinked, green to red to green. In the reflection on the TV, I saw my own face, lined, gray at the temples, and for the first time it looked like a mask I could take off. "Great," he said. "Don't mess with anything else." "Wouldn't dream of it," I said. Back in my room, I closed the door and sat on the edge of the bed, breath tight, fingers cold. The last two numbers weighted like teeth in a trap. I pulled the envelope from the book, the paper catching on the soft cotton of the jacket I'd folded on the chair. My hands shook. I steadied them against the wood of the nightstand. It felt worn smooth, the way Caroline's wedding ring used to feel when I held her hand. I read the fifth number. Match. I stood without meaning to. The room felt smaller, the air thinner, like the moment before a storm hits and the world pauses to listen to its own heartbeat. I pressed the phone to my ear and called the hotline, the recorded voice warm and false, like a game show host. "Welcome to Megalotto. Tonight's winning numbers are..." It read them slowly, each digit a hammer. I checked them again and again. My thumb left a damp print on the corner of the ticket. The sixth number matched. For a long second, there was no sound at all. No AC, no TV, no traffic from Pine and Maple. Just my pulse, loud enough to make the lampshade tremble in the corner of my eye. Someone knocked on my door. 3 quick taps. I slid the ticket under the book, snapped the cover shut, and answered. My son stood there with a slice of pizza, grease bleeding into the cardboard plate. "You want?" he asked, eyebrows up, the tone almost kind. "I'm not hungry," I said. "Thanks." He sniffed, shrugged. "Suit yourself," he said, then added, "Hey, you didn't throw away any envelopes from the kitchen, did you? I had some receipts." "Didn't see any," I said, holding his gaze until he looked away. He moved down the hall. The floorboards creaked under his steps, a sound I'd known since he was 3. I closed the door, turned the lock, and leaned back against the wood. My palms were slick, my mouth tasted like copper. I took the ticket out one last time and signed the back with a pen that scratched like a tiny saw. The ink bled into the paper fibers. My name looked unfamiliar, like I'd borrowed it from someone luckier. From the closet, I pulled a Ziploc bag and slid the ticket inside, pushing the air out with the flat of my hand. Then I knelt by the bed, lifted the corner of the carpet, and pried up the loose floorboard I hadn't touched since Caroline hid Christmas presents there. Dust puffed into my face, dry and papery. I tucked the bag in the hollow and lowered the board, pressing until the nail bit back into the wood. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands on my knees, breath finally slowing. Outside, a siren wailed somewhere on Pine, fading fast. The radio in the kitchen burbled about weather and luck and someone's good fortune. I switched off the lamp and let the dark settle. "Dad," he called from the living room. "Yes? You didn't see any lottery stuff, right?" "No," I said, and my voice sounded steady, like the first step onto a new road. I slid my fingers along the seam of the floorboard, feeling the faint rise where the wood met wood. A line no one would notice unless they were looking for it. For the first time in a long time, I smiled. The law office smelled of polished wood and dark coffee. The lobby was hushed, only the faint clicking of a receptionist's keyboard breaking the silence. I sat on a leather chair that squeaked when I shifted, the armrest smooth and cool beneath my palm. "Mr. Hale?" A man in a gray suit appeared at the doorway, his voice low, professional. "Come in." His office was warm, a desk lamp casting amber light over stacks of files. Behind him, shelves lined with thick legal books loomed like silent judges. I eased into the chair across from him, the leather sighing under my weight. "So," he began, folding his hands, "you said it's about a lottery ticket." I slid the envelope across the desk. The paper rasped against the wood. He lifted it carefully, adjusting his glasses. "Do you understand what you're holding?" he asked. "$24 million, I whispered. My throat felt dry, the words sticking like glue. He nodded. "Exactly, which means you're also holding 24 million problems. People will come for it, even family." I exhaled, long and shaky. "That's why I'm here. I don't trust my son. He'll drain it, claim it, do whatever it takes. I need protection." The lawyer tapped the ticket gently against his palm. "We can set up a trust, quietly. We keep your name sealed from public record, but you must not breathe a word of this. Not to him, not to anyone." Through the glass wall, I saw blurred shapes passing in the hallway. A woman's laugh echoed faintly. My chest tightened. "And if he finds out?" I asked. The lawyer's eyes sharpened. "Then you already lost." I swallowed, the bitter scent of his coffee filling my lungs. He slid the ticket back to me, then added a thin folder. "These are the first steps. Sign nothing at home. Keep everything hidden. And remember, silence is your weapon." I tucked the folder into my coat, the edges pressing against my ribs. As I stood, the chair legs scraped softly against the carpet. In the hallway, someone's phone rang, sharp and jarring. For a moment, I froze, half expecting to see my son turn the corner, but the corridor was empty. I walked out into the cold afternoon air, the folder clutched tight under my arm. Each breath fogged in front of me, heavy and white. For the first time in months, I felt a current stirring beneath my skin. Not fear, not shame. It was control. The house was silent when I slipped back inside, the kind of silence that made every sound echo too loud. I carried the folder under my jacket, the corner of it digging into my ribs with every step. The floorboards creaked as I moved toward my room, each groan of wood a warning. I shut the door, locked it, and spread the papers across the desk. The lawyer's instructions were clear. Notarize, seal, store copies separately. I pulled out the small scanner I kept for bills and fed the documents through, the machine humming softly, its light crawling line by line across the page. Halfway through, footsteps in the hallway, heavy, too close. "Dad?" My son's voice. The handle rattled. "What are you doing in there?" I froze, the scanner light still moving. The whir sounded like thunder. "Just sorting some old bills," I called, forcing my voice steady. Silence. Then a laugh muffled through the door. "Bills? You still do paper? God, you're hopeless." His footsteps retreated. I let out the breath I'd been holding, sweat prickling at my temples. I pulled the scanned files onto a flash drive, small and cold in my hand, then slipped it into the lining of my jacket. The original papers went back into the envelope, which I hid under the loose floorboard with the ticket. My fingers brushed the dust there, gritty, sharp. Later that night, while they watched TV in the living room, I slipped out. The cold air stung my cheeks as I walked 2 blocks to the UPS store. The neon buzzed overhead, and the glass door felt icy as I pushed it open. "Evening," the clerk muttered, barely glancing up. The smell of cardboard and toner ink clung to the air. I made copies, one set sealed in a thick manila envelope, then mailed them to a P.O. box the lawyer had arranged. As the clerk stamped the package, I felt a shiver run down my spine, like I was handing over not just papers, but my future. Back home, the TV roared with laughter as I slipped inside. My son's girlfriend looked up, smirking. "Out late, huh? You got a date we don't know about?" I shook my head. Just needed a walk. She laughed, turning back to the screen. "Sure, old men and their secrets." My heart thudded. For a moment, I wondered if she knew, if they both knew, but then the joke rolled on, and their laughter swallowed the room. I walked to my room, shut the door, and leaned against it. The flash drive pressed in my pocket like a hidden blade. Almost caught, almost ruined, but not tonight. The next morning smelled of burnt toast. My son was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with his phone in hand, the screen glow sharp against his face. His girlfriend sat at the table, nails clicking on a glass of orange juice. I walked in slowly, my jacket heavy with the flash drive in the pocket. "Where'd you go last night?" he asked without looking up. His tone wasn't casual, it was sharp, probing. "I told you," I said, reaching for the kettle. "I took a walk." His eyes flicked up at me. "At midnight, in the cold? That doesn't sound like you." The kettle whistled, loud and shrill, filling the silence I didn't want to answer. I poured the hot water into my mug, the steam fogging my glasses. His girlfriend leaned forward, a sly grin tugging at her lips. "Maybe he's got a secret girlfriend." They laughed, but his eyes stayed on me, too steady. He set his phone down, the thud of it on the counter like a gavel. "You hiding something, Dad?" I sipped the tea, scalding my tongue. "Nothing to hide." He stepped closer, his presence crowding the room. "Because if you are, I'll find out. You're not good at keeping secrets." The refrigerator hummed, the sound filling the space between us. My hand tightened on the mug. "I'm just tired," I said softly. "That's all." He studied me for a long moment, then smirked. "Sure, tired." He turned away, but his tone carried a warning. "Don't get any ideas. Everything here runs through me." I stood there, the tea cooling in my hands, his words hanging in the air like a threat. For the first time, I realized he was watching, and if I slipped even once, the whole plan would shatter. That night, the house was quiet except for the low drone of the TV from the living room. My son and his girlfriend had fallen asleep on the couch, pizza boxes scattered across the coffee table, the smell of grease heavy in the air. I slipped into my room and locked the door. My hands moved fast but careful. I pulled the floorboard up again, the wood groaning softly. The dust rose in a thin cloud, scratching my throat. I took out the ticket, still sealed in its plastic bag, and the flash drive with the scanned documents. For a long moment, I just stared at them under the lamplight. Proof, power, something he couldn't touch. I picked up my old flip phone, the one my son never bothered with. In the dark, I dialed the lawyer's number, the buttons clicking loud in my ear. He answered with a calm, steady voice. "Mr. Hale, did you secure everything?" "Yes," I whispered. My eyes flicked to the door, half expecting the knob to turn. "The ticket, the trust papers, all hidden." "Good," he said. "Then you're safe. Remember, you hold the key. As long as they don't know, they have nothing." I ended the call, the phone snapping shut. My heart was still pounding, but not from fear this time, from something sharper, control. I slid the board back into place and dusted my hands. Outside the door, the TV laughed for no one. But inside my room, for the first time in years, I wasn't the extra chair, the leftover plate, the forgotten man. I was ahead. The morning sun poured through the blinds in pale stripes, dust hanging in the air like smoke. I sat at the kitchen table with a cold cup of coffee, the bitter surface rippling as I tapped my finger against the mug. My son walked in, phone in one hand, a smirk tugging at his mouth. His girlfriend trailed behind him, chewing gum, the sharp mint scent filling the room. "Morning," he said too casually, sliding into the chair across from me. "Busy last night?" I lifted the mug, forcing a sip. "Just sorting things." "Sorting what?" His eyes narrowed slightly. The hum of the refrigerator seemed louder, the clock on the wall ticking hard enough to dig into my skull. "Old papers," I said. "Bills." He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "You've been locking your door a lot. Since when do you need privacy?" His girlfriend laughed, flicking her gum into a napkin. "Maybe he's hiding love letters." He ignored her, his gaze fixed on me. "Or maybe it's something else." The spoon clinked against my cup as I set it down. "You think I've got secrets?" "Do you?" His voice was quiet but sharp as glass. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The ceiling fan above stirred the air, its slow whirring like a blade turning over my head. Finally, he leaned back, grabbing his phone again. "Just saying, if you are hiding something, I'll find it. You're not exactly subtle." His girlfriend giggled again, but I barely heard her. My chest felt tight, the coffee bitter on my tongue. He scrolled idly, but his eyes cut up to me once more, quick and sharp. And I knew then, he was already circling, The evening carried the faint smell of fried food from the takeout bags they had dropped on the counter. Grease stained the cardboard, the scent of garlic knots heavy in the air. I sat in the living room, pretending to read the paper, though the words blurred under the lamplight. My son's girlfriend wandered past, humming off-key, her perfume sharp and sweet like spilled candy. The floor creaked as she stopped at my door. "Hey!" she called out, casual but too loud. "What's in here?" Before I could answer, the knob rattled. "Don't," I said, lowering the paper. My voice cracked, but I forced it steady. "Private." She laughed, glancing over her shoulder at my son. "See? I told you. He's hiding something." He walked up, phone glowing in his hand. "Open it, Dad. What are you keeping in there? Some old love letters? Secret stash?" I folded the newspaper, palms damp. "It's my room. You respect mine. I respect yours." He smirked, pressing his hand to the doorframe. "Respect? That's rich. You live under my roof now." The air grew thick. The TV from the living room blasted laughter that didn't belong to us. My chest tightened. Then her voice again, sharp with mockery. "Maybe it's money. You think he's got stacks hidden under the bed?" They both laughed, the sound bouncing down the hallway, filling the house. My pulse hammered. I imagined the floorboard in my room, the envelope, the flash drive, the ticket, just inches from discovery. "Enough," I said, rising. The chair scraped the wood floor, loud, angry. "If you don't trust me, then search, but you'll find nothing worth your time." For a moment, the silence snapped tight. He stared at me, eyes cold, searching my face for a crack. Finally, he smirked, stepping back. "Relax, Dad. We're just kidding." She giggled, following him away. "Yeah, just a joke." Their laughter trailed off into the kitchen, but the smell of garlic and grease seemed heavier now, choking the air. I stood there, heart pounding, my hand clenched so hard the newspaper crumpled into a ball. It was too close, too damn close. And I knew next time they wouldn't stop at the door. Rain hammered against the windows that night, a steady drumming that made the whole house feel restless. The air smelled damp, the faint odor of wet leaves seeping in through the cracks. I sat at my desk, the folder open, papers spread out under the yellow glow of the lamp. The flash drive lay beside my hand, small and silver, catching the light like a blade. The door burst open without a knock. My son stood there, his girlfriend at his shoulder. Water dripped from his jacket onto the carpet. "What the hell is this?" he barked, holding up a letter. My chest lurched. The lawyer's return envelope left in the mailbox. "Mail," I said quickly, rising to my feet. The paper under my hand crinkled loud as thunder. "Not just mail," he snapped, "from a law office. Why are you writing lawyers?" His girlfriend's eyes darted to my desk. She saw the corner of a document and moved closer. "Look, he's hiding something." I swept the papers into a pile, my fingers clumsy. The flash drive slid off the desk, clattering against the hardwood. All three of us froze. "What's that?" he demanded. He bent down, but I was faster. I scooped the drive up, shoving it into my pocket. My heart thundered, blood rushing in my ears. "Old taxes," I lied. "Nothing important." "Taxes?" he sneered, stepping closer, the smell of rain and sweat rolling off him. "Since when do you hide taxes?" His girlfriend folded her arms, her perfume sharp against the damp air. "He's lying." For a moment, I thought it was over, that everything I had built would be stripped bare under their eyes. My knees weakened, sweat dampening the collar of my shirt. Then the microwave beeped from the kitchen, shrill and sudden. She turned her head, distracted. He exhaled sharply, tossing the envelope back onto my desk. "Fine, but you'd better not be screwing us over, Dad. Because if you are..." His voice trailed off into a low growl. The door slammed behind them, rattling the frame. I collapsed into the chair, chest heaving, my hand clamped over the flash drive in my pocket. The papers were a mess, edges bent, one corner torn. It had been too close. A single slip, a single second slower, and everything would have been gone. The rain outside grew louder, drowning out the sound of my ragged breath. The next morning, the house smelled of stale pizza and damp carpet. I barely slept. Every creak in the floorboards sounded like discovery. Every gust of wind outside like a knock at the door. The flash drive was still in my pocket, a hard lump that kept digging into my side. At breakfast, my son leaned against the counter, scrolling his phone. His girlfriend sat at the table, sipping fresh milk, the glass fogging in her hand. Their eyes flicked toward me as I entered, and the silence stretched. "Morning," I said, voice low. He smirked without looking up. Morning, Dad. Hope you're not hiding any more paperwork. She chuckled. Yeah, we'd hate to miss out on secrets. I forced a laugh, pouring myself coffee. The bitter smell curled in my nose, hiding the panic in my chest. I couldn't keep playing defense. If they pressed harder, I'd lose everything. That afternoon, when the house was quiet, I took the flash drive and the envelope of documents and slipped them into a plain grocery bag. I walked 3 blocks through the drizzle to the library. The place smelled of old paper and floor polish. Upstairs, in the hushed rows of shelves, I found Mr. Carter, the retired neighbor who volunteered there. His glasses slid down his nose as he looked up. Didn't expect to see you, he said. Needed a safe place, I whispered, showing him the bag. Can you lock this up in your desk? Just for a while. His brow furrowed, but he nodded. Of course. As the drawer shut with a soft click, relief washed over me like a warm tide. The weight lifted from my pocket, from my chest. On the walk back, the drizzle had stopped. The sky broke open with a thin strip of sunlight. I felt it on my face, sharp and clean. When I entered the house, my son was waiting. His eyes scanned me, searching for something, but I kept my expression flat. Where have you been? He asked. Library, I said, setting the empty grocery bag on the counter. You should try it sometime. He studied me, lips tight, then shrugged. Whatever. For the first time, I walked past him without fear. The secret wasn't in the house anymore. It was out of his reach. The lottery auditorium smelled like fresh paint and burnt coffee. Cameras lined the back wall, red tally lights winking like little eyes. A vinyl backdrop with the state logo rippled under the AC vent, and the oversized check sat on an easel, face down. A secret everyone pretended not to read yet. I stepped onto the cheap carpet runner, the kind that grabs your shoes and slows you down. And a woman with a lanyard and headset lifted her clipboard as if it were a stop sign. Mr. Hale, we'll keep it short. You'll smile, shake hands, say thank you and blessed, and we're done, she said, eyes already skipping to the next fire to put out. I'll say what I came to say, I answered. Her smile went tight. We really encourage winners to stick to the script. Encourage all you want. A Channel 7 cameraman slid sideways for a better angle, the camera purring on his shoulder. Somewhere by the podium, the microphone popped with a quick throat-clearing squeal. People were still milling, city staff. 2 men in cheap suits who smelled of hair gel and ambition. A couple of kids pressing their noses to the glass doors outside. And then I saw them near the back, my son in a crisp shirt he hadn't ironed, his girlfriend wrapped in a beige coat she would return tomorrow. He lifted his chin when our eyes met. She gave me a thin, tight smile like a paper cut. He cut through the crowd toward me, smiling for anyone who might be watching. Up close, his breath carried mint and impatience. Dad, couple of lines, you'll thank me later. For what? For not making this a joke. His hand landed on my elbow, light but claiming. You'll say it's a family blessing. You'll say we did this together. It looks better. We didn't, I said. He leaned in. You like that house? You like breathing there? Then don't embarrass us. A security guard glanced over. The headset woman materialized again, clapping her hands softly. Places, please. Mr. Hale, here. Family can stand to the right for the photo. His girlfriend brushed past me so close her perfume fogged my nose. Try not to shake, she whispered. Old hands on camera, never flattering. I walked to the tape mark on the floor. The podium smelled of lemon cleaner and old spit. The lottery director, a man with a tie patterned like fireworks, stepped up first, voice polished smooth. Ladies and gentlemen, we are thrilled to present, well, a truly life-changing moment for Mr. Richard Hale. Applause fluttered like paper. The check flipped face up. The room leaned as one. 24 million in big comic numbers. The cameras drank it in. I felt my jaw set. Mr. Hale, would you say a few words? The director asked, all teeth. I moved to the mic. The podium light hit my eyes, bleaching the crowd into a blur of shoulders and blinking lenses. I could still pick out my son, though. Arms crossed, jaw tight, the smile gone now that the lens wasn't on him. He made a small circling motion with 2 fingers, the universal sign for wrap it up. I took the breath I'd been saving. Thanks for the chairs and the lights, I said. They're bright. Makes it easy to see what's real. A murmur. The director's smile faltered half a degree. I let the room breathe. The AC thumped. Somewhere a pen clicked over and over, nervous. I didn't come here for a script, I said. I came here to tell the truth. Dad, my son said from the side, voice pitched low and careful. Keep it simple. I looked straight at the cameras. The lens glass was black and round as an eye. A few months ago, my son poured me a glass of expired milk and told me it was good enough for me. He kept the fresh bottle for himself. A ripple ran through the officials like someone opened a door in a church. The director's smile turned into a clamp. The headset woman took one step closer, like she might pull the mic if it got worse. My son laughed too loud. He's joking. He does that. I kept my voice even. I ended up in the hospital, alone. The cameraman's red light glowed brighter. Or maybe I just wanted it to. In the back, a reporter in a navy dress raised her chin, pen already moving. My son's girlfriend lifted her phone, recording in vertical, eyes gleaming as if drama were a tip jar. "Sir," the lottery director tried, let's keep it positive." "I am," I said, "very." Another nervous laugh flickered through the room and died. The microphone smelled like every mouth that had ever leaned into it. I could taste metal. "People think money changes who you are," I said. "I think it just puts a light on it." "Enough!" my son hissed, stepping toward the stage. The guard's palm came up, gentle but firm. His girlfriend tugged his sleeve, whispering with a smile that didn't touch her eyes. On the far wall, behind the cameras, a woman I recognized from the foundation's office slipped in and stood by the exit, a slim folder tucked to her chest with both hands. She didn't wave. She just nodded once, as if to say, "Whenever you're ready." I placed both hands flat on the podium to stop the shaking the girlfriend was so sure would show. The wood was nicked under my left palm. Someone had gouged a crescent there with a ring. I pressed into it like a grip. "I'll keep it simple," I said, turning slightly so the Czech and I were in the same shot. "This isn't a story about luck. It's about respect." My son smiled again, too wide. "And family," he said, "for the room, for the lenses. He means family." For once, I said, I don't. The hush that followed felt like a held note, a vacuum where sound should be. A camera fan whirred. The director's knuckles whitened on his cue cards. I could feel the next part sitting on my tongue, heavy as a coin you're about to drop into a well, and the faces in front of me leaned forward without moving, waiting to see which way I'd let it fall. The cameras clicked like insects. I reached into my jacket pocket, the fabric rasping against my knuckles, and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. My son stiffened. His girlfriend's smile snapped thin as thread. "This," I said, unfolding it slowly so the microphones picked up the crackle, "is the hospital intake report from the night I collapsed. Cause, food poisoning. Source, spoiled dairy. Witness notes, patient claims son refused to assist." The words hung heavy in the room. Reporters shifted, pens scratching. One leaned closer, angling for a better shot of the page. My son barked a laugh. "Come on, he's exaggerating. He always does. You know how old people get, making drama out of nothing." His girlfriend added quickly, "Hospitals write down anything you say. It doesn't mean it's true." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. One camera zoomed closer, the lens humming, the red light a steady stare. The lottery director tried to paste a smile back on. "Perhaps we should move to the check presentation." "No," a woman reporter cut in, her voice firm. "Let him finish." I held the paper higher, the hospital logo glinting under the lights. They didn't come. They didn't even call. They laughed while I drank sour milk and told me it was all I deserved. Gasps fluttered across the room like startled birds. A guard shifted his stance. My son stepped forward, his face red now, jaw clenched. "He's lying. He's always been dramatic. This is his version, not the truth." I set the paper down on the podium, flat, steady. "Then maybe we'll test that against more than my word." The murmurs grew louder. Reporters leaned toward one another, exchanging whispers. The microphones crackled, hungry for the next word. My son's smile returned, but it was brittle, his teeth too tight. "He doesn't know what he's saying. He's confused. Everyone gets confused at his age." I looked at him and let the silence stretch. The cameras ate every twitch of his face. "I may be old," I said finally, voice sharp, "but I'm not confused. Not about what you did." The director shifted uneasily. The headset woman froze by the curtain, and the crowd knew. This was only the beginning. The room buzzed with whispers, the hum of cameras louder now, like a hive waking up. I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket again, this time pulling out a small flash drive. The lights from the podium glinted off its metal edge. "This," I said, holding it up so every lens caught the glimmer, "is a copy of messages between my son and his girlfriend. Texts dated the night I ended up in the hospital. Gasps rolled through the rows. The lottery director shifted in place, his cue cards trembling. My son's face drained, then flushed back red. That's illegal. You can't just... I didn't hack, I cut in, voice steady. You left your phone on the counter. You bragged. I copied the proof. Reporters leaned forward, eyes sharp, pens ready. A cameraman zoomed in so close I could see the iris contract. The headset woman lifted her walkie, whispering into it, but no one came to stop me. I plugged the drive into the laptop waiting on the side table, its fan whirring. The big screen flickered, then glowed with text bubbles projected larger than life. Let him drink it, he won't even notice. Yeah, the old man's too stubborn to die anyway. Laughter emojis. The room gasped as one. Someone muttered, Jesus Christ. My son lunged forward, his hand slicing the air. Fake! That's fake! You can't believe this. He doctored it. The reporter in the navy dress raised her voice. Are you saying those aren't your numbers? Because we can subpoena the records. Silence cut the air. His girlfriend tugged at his sleeve, eyes wide, her lipstick smile cracking. Say something, she hissed, but the microphone caught it. He stammered, sweat beading his forehead under the harsh lights. We were joking, just stupid jokes. The crowd hissed. Whispers turned into low boos. A man in the back shook his head. Cameras swiveled, catching every bead of sweat on my son's skin. I turned back to the mic, my voice low, deliberate. That's not a joke. That's contempt. For me, for family, for the roof over his head. My son's hands shook at his sides. His girlfriend folded her arms, stepping a fraction away from him. The guard by the door shifted, watching closely now. The tension in the room coiled tighter, like a wire about to snap. And I knew I wasn't done yet. The lights above the podium buzzed faintly, hot against the back of my neck. The crowd leaned closer, hungry, restless. I reached down to the leather folder on the table and drew out a sealed envelope. The paper was thick, stamped with a notary's seal that gleamed under the stage lights. This, I said, sliding the document free, is the winning lottery ticket, signed, sealed, registered. The gasp that rose from the crowd was sharp, collective, like a single intake of breath. Cameras surged forward, shutters cracking in a machine gun rhythm. I held it high, but not in my name anymore. A reporter shouted, "What do you mean?" I laid the ticket flat on the podium, pressing my palm over it. The ink of my name bled dark against the paper. Next to it was another sheet, trust paperwork, notarized. This ticket has already been transferred into a charitable foundation. Every cent is locked, not mine, not his. My son's voice cracked as he shoved forward, his words spilling too loud into the microphone. No, that's not possible. That's fraud. You can't give it away without... Without your permission? I asked, letting the silence bite after the question. Check again. Last month you signed off on a stack of what you thought were utility papers. Your signature's right here. I slid the page into the light. The notary seal gleamed. His signature, crooked, rushed, careless, stared back at him. His girlfriend gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. You signed it? The crowd erupted in a chorus of whispers, some laughter, some outright jeers. A reporter's voice cut above the noise. So he legally disclaimed the winnings? Exactly, I said, by his own hand. My son's face crumpled, red blotches spreading across his cheeks. You tricked me! You set me up! I leaned closer to the microphone, my voice calm even. Number you set yourself up. All I did was put the papers in front of you. You were too busy sneering to notice what you gave away. He staggered back, bumping into a reporter's tripod. The camera stayed trained on him, recording every twitch, every collapse of his practiced smirk. His girlfriend took another step away, arms crossed tight now, eyes cold. Dad, he stammered, voice breaking. You can't do this to me. I'm your son. The crowd hissed, voices rising. He signed it himself. Ungrateful bastard. He poisoned his own father. The pressure in the room pressed down like a storm. My son's shoulders sagged, the fight draining out of him. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came. He was breaking right there under the cameras, and everyone could see it. The room had turned. You could feel it in the way the crowd shifted, the air charged with that raw mix of outrage and glee people get when they see the mighty stumble. Reporters shouted over one another, the microphones thrust forward like weapons. Mr. Hale, did your son really abandon you at the hospital? Can we get a statement on the texts? Were they authentic? Did he knowingly sign away his rights to the winnings? The questions flew like stones. My son stood blinking in the floodlights, sweat slicking his hair to his forehead. His lips trembled, but no words came. His girlfriend edged away from him, just enough for the cameras to catch it. "I didn't sign anything," she blurted, but her voice wavered. "This isn't my problem." The crowd caught it instantly. Some laughed, some jeered. "She's bailing!" someone yelled. A Channel 7 reporter raised her voice above the din. "Sir, did you knowingly poison your father with spoiled milk?" That question landed like a slap. Gasps rippled through the room. My son's face twisted. "It wasn't like that! He's lying! He hates me!" The jeers grew louder, reporters circling closer, cameras zooming. The guard by the stage stepped forward, holding back the tide with one arm, but the damage was done. The truth wasn't just whispered anymore, it was public record, stamped into the microphones, carried on every live feed. My lawyer, seated quietly by the side wall, finally rose. His voice was steady, calm, like steel beneath velvet. "Ladies and gentlemen, every document shown today is notarized and sealed. There is no fraud. The foundation owns the ticket. Mr. Hale's son has no legal claim." The press roared with questions, but the guard waved them back. My son's face crumpled completely now, rage and panic colliding. "You can't do this. I'm your son. You owe me." The room hissed, the audience reacting as one body. Some booed, others muttered curses. A woman in the back shouted, "He doesn't owe you a damn thing." The lottery director leaned toward me, his smile plastered but his voice urgent. "Would you like to make a final statement before we close?" I looked at my son, his eyes wild, mouth working soundlessly as the crowd pressed in, the cameras capturing every second of his unraveling. The moment was ripe. Everyone knew he was finished, and I still had one sentence left. The room buzzed like a live wire, reporters shouting, cameras blinking, my son standing there with his face crumbling under the heat of the lights. He was cornered, humiliated, finished. And still, I hadn't given them the last nail. I let the silence stretch, the way a hunter lets the prey realize it's trapped. My hand reached under the podiums, into the leather bag I'd brought. When it came back up, I was holding a plain glass bottle of milk. The cap was still sealed, beads of condensation sliding down the side. Gasps rose. Everyone knew what it meant. I set the bottle on the podium with a deliberate thud. "This," I said, voice low but carrying, "is fresh." I twisted the cap, the crack loud in the microphone. The smell of cream spread faintly into the hot air. "And this," I continued, pulling a smaller bottle from the bag, the one with the yellow cap, the one that had been left in my fridge for weeks, sour and curdled, "is what my son thought I was worth." The crowd erupted, shouts, gasps, the snap of cameras like gunfire. My son staggered back, hands up as if he could ward it off. "No, it's not what it looks like." But the room wasn't his anymore. I held both bottles high, one in each hand. "He gave me poison. I chose life. He tried to bury me. I built a foundation that will outlive him." Reporters surged closer, microphones trembling. My son shouted, desperate now, "You can't do this! You're nothing without me. Without family, you're alone." That was the moment I dropped the twist. I set the fresh bottle down gently. Then I opened the folder from the foundation rep, waiting by the door, and spread the papers across the podium. "I'm not alone. Every cent is already pledged to hospitals, schools, shelters. And here's the part no one told you. Your name, your careless signature, is on the founding documents as well." The crowd froze, then gasped again, louder than before. Reporters craned to see. "Yes," I said, letting it sink in. "You didn't just sign away the money, you signed yourself into it. Legally, you're listed as a co-founder of the Hale Foundation, which means for the rest of your life, your name will be attached to feeding the people you mocked, housing the people you called worthless, serving the ones you thought beneath you." His face went slack, as if the ground had fallen away beneath him. His girlfriend backed farther into the crowd, shaking her head, already separating herself from his ruin. "You wanted control?" I said, leaning into the microphone, my voice cutting clean. "Here it is. Your name on every charity check, every soup kitchen, every hospital wing. You'll be remembered, all right, not as an heir, but as a warning." The room exploded, cheers, shouts, flashes bursting like fireworks. I looked at him one last time, his mouth opening and closing without sound, his eyes wild. Then I picked up the sour bottle, turned it upside down, and let the curdled milk spill across the podium. The stench filled the air, sharp and foul. My final words cut through the chaos. You buried me with spoiled milk. I buried you with your own name. And the crowd roared as the cameras caught the moment, the milk dripping off the edge of the stage, my son frozen in the center of his own collapse. The auditorium emptied slow, the echoes of cheers still clinging to the walls. Reporters packed their gear, the oversized check was wheeled off stage, and the sour stink of the spilled bottle still hung in the air, turning every breath sharp. I walked out through the side door. The evening air hit cool, carrying the smell of wet asphalt from a passing rain. For the first time in months, my chest felt lighter. Not free, but lighter. At home, the house was silent. No TV, no laughter, no perfume cloying up the hall. My son and his girlfriend were gone. They hadn't even bothered to slam the door. Their absence left a stillness that felt cleaner than any victory. The kitchen light hummed overhead. I opened the fridge. On the middle shelf sat a fresh bottle of milk, unopened, white and perfect in the fluorescent glow. I took it out, cracked the cap, and poured myself a glass. The sound was soft, steady, pure. I carried it to the table, sat down, and raised the glass in a quiet toast to Caroline, to the years I'd wasted believing my blood was my bond, and to the strangers who would sleep warm tonight because my son's greed had chained him to their cause forever. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car drove past, its headlights sweeping across the blinds like a brief memory. I took a sip, cold, clean, nothing sour. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel old. I didn't feel broken. I felt finished. The phone buzzed once on the counter, an unknown number. I let it ring out. This was the end of the story. And now I want to ask you, if you were in my place, what would you have done? Would you have forgiven, or would you have taken revenge the way I did? Write your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to tell me which city you're watching from and what time it is there right now.